Today, it's episode number 2 of my special summer series, Get Into Business 101. Today, we're going to be talking about resources, your skills and attributes, and how to figure out what kind of business you should get into.
I'm David C Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses while controlling risk. So if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Are you thinking of growing your business or beginning a journey into entrepreneurship? Take a shortcut to success by buying an existing and profitable business the right way. Visit businessbuyeradvantage.com and learn more about my online training, group coaching, and consulting services designed to help you win.
Hey everyone, last week I kicked off this special summer series with the video about integrity. If you missed it, go check it out over on the YouTube channel. As I mentioned, this is a special summer series brought to you by my new book, which is coming out on Labor Day, Buying versus Starting a Small Business. Pre-order is available, and you can find this in my Amazon store at dcbbooklist.com or any other Amazon store around the world on Kindle. And then for Labor Day, we're also going to have a paperback and audiobook will be available then as well. And if you forget, don't worry, I will remind you. All right, so today we're going to be talking about some of the earliest parts of the planning stage for getting into business. I mean, people follow this YouTube channel, they start watching my stuff because they're interested in being in business. And I talk a lot about deal making and I talk about buying businesses, and we have guests on here where we talk about borrowing money. And some people, freak out. They're like, oh my God, if I borrow $1 million and sign a personal guarantee, I don't know if I'll be able to sleep at night. Well, this is why we're kind of edging into that space about starting a business. And if you don't have much in the way of money and resources, then starting might seem like a more feasible idea for you. So today we're talking about planning. So before you spend any money on anything, and before you go and talk to anyone who might be wanting to sell their business, you've got to figure out what your options are based on the resources that you have available, both material resources, like money and assets, and within yourself. So you start with pen and paper, or open up a note, some kind of note on your cell phone or something, because we're going to make a list together. So what you're going to put is all of your money resources. So this is cash savings. This is, investment funds that you might be able to withdraw. Go learn if there's going to be some kind of penalty if you take out, retirement savings, for example. I'm not saying that you're going to do this. I'm saying you need to understand just what are all the resources that I have available. You want to find out, what your credit card limits are. You want to find out, what your limit is on your line of credit if you have one. You also want to explore if there are other kinds of credit vehicles available to you. And you're going to put this all on a list and do an assessment to figure out just what sort of personal financial resources you have available to you. Now, there's also the world of assets. So if you have a pickup truck, if you have a car, if you have a computer already, those things are going to be helpful for you if you want to start a business, for example. So put them on the list too. And then expand it to your relationships. Do you have a family member that owns a business, and do they have a warehouse, for example, and is there empty space there? So you could, for example, approach them and say, hey, I want to start up this business. Would I be able to store some inventory in your warehouse? Sometimes people have access to resources through their personal relationships that they can then use in doing a business, right? So you want to get all this stuff on a list. You want to really find out what are the puzzle pieces that I'm working with. Kind of like if you're going to build something out of Lego, you might want to spend a few minutes looking at the pieces you have in front of you, because that's going to better inform what you might try to do with it. So I found this interesting article online because I get a lot of people who will watch these videos that I make, and maybe I'll talk about a deal where or I'll bring on someone from a bank and we'll talk about a loan for buying a business. And then sometimes people will put comments saying, oh, I'm terrified of signing a personal guarantee for $1 million loan. Well, if you don't want to sign a loan and you don't, or guarantee a loan and have a personal guarantee on it, then my answer to that is don't, right? So let's understand in the real world of starting a business, just where do the resources come from for people to get into business? So this is an article from Clutch. It is dated October 6, 2020. So this is post, sort of pandemic when this was created. And it talks about startup funding. They surveyed 501 businesses in the United States, and they asked them, where did you get the money for starting your business? What is interesting is that 57% of business founders said that a personal investment was their first source of capital within 3 months of starting their business, the top source of funding for startup founders. So the reality is that when people start a business, most of the time it's just their own cash, right? So they have savings. And you can start a business with very little money, especially if you're getting into some kind of service business. Someone with a laptop and a cell phone can become a consultant. Ask me how I know, right? So you can get into business very cheaply. Number two, after 3 months, additional sources of funding include loans from family or friends, 19% of people, credit cards, 18%, or a bank loan, 12%. So only 12% of startup founders got a loan from a bank, right? So very, very, very few people. And then it says more than 2/3 of business founders were able to obtain adequate financing for their company in its first 6 months, suggesting that most startup founders have independent savings or other means to finance their business without loans. Makes sense to me, right? And, contrary to what you might find on Instagram, the reality is that a lot of people who get into business for the first time are actually, middle-aged. And so would you expect someone who is middle-aged to actually have some net worth, savings, et cetera? Yeah, you would, right? If they've been successful and diligent in saving and whatnot. So your resources are really important. And then it talks about more information here about whether people were comfortable asking family and friends, et cetera, et cetera. And some of the things get broken down even more in the article here. But the reality is, your personal resources are going to really inform what your opportunities are. And so a lot of the times when I make videos for younger people who say, I really want to get into business, my advice is often, make sure you have a good credit score, get a job where you're going to learn new skills, live below your means and save up money, because that pathway is going to create the foundation for you to get into business one day, whether it's starting or buying one, right? And so, and I can also tell you that even if you're going to buy a business instead of starting one, there are so many deals that I have personally worked on which don't include bank loans. In fact, in the summer of 2022, I did a special series called the Summer of Alternative Financing, where I basically talked about deal structures and sources of capital to use when there is not going to be a bank involved typically, right? So there's all kinds of things that you can do. So we talked about your resources, we talked about cash, we talked about access to credit cards, lines of credit, etc. While you are gainfully employed, before you quit your job, before you start your business, this is the time to increase those resources. So that means making sure that you live below your means to save money, as I mentioned, but it also means this is the time to apply for greater credit facilities. So if you're gainfully employed and you have a good credit score and you have low utilization on your credit facilities, call your credit card companies, ask for an increase in your limits, apply for new credit cards, apply for lines of credit. Now is the time to get it, because it's going to be easier for you as an employed person to qualify for this stuff. And then if you decide to start a business or buy a business and you leave that employment, often those credit facilities are never going to know. As long as they're current, they're going to be happy, etc. So build your resources and access to credit now. Next, personal aptitudes and skills. So this is when you look at your own work history and you try to examine yourself and figure out what you're good at and what you know. So, for example, If in the past you were the manager of a fast food restaurant, that does not mean that your only option to buy or start a business is to get a fast food restaurant of your own. There, obviously, your history is going to give you skills in that regard. But think about what you did in that role. So if you were handling customer service issues, if you were dealing with interpersonal issues between staff, if you were scheduling people, if you were managing employees, maybe that were younger people, a lot of teenagers, or managing people that were lower wage people who might have different sort of management characteristics than if you worked in an engineering firm and you were managing engineers, right? So you list out what you're good at, what you know, because this is going to help you create a characteristic list for the ideal business that you want to buy. The business attributes are important. So in a perfect world, you would say, I want a certain kind of business. So I've met some people who will say, I want a machine shop in upstate New York with revenue in a certain range and this number of employees. And that's really specific. And with that sort of industry desire, you can go and you can just use the yellow pages and you can find those businesses. But if you can at least say, I want a business that does business to business sales, that has an average ticket in a certain range, so average sale is $10,000, that has this number of employees. I want a business that is a service business or a capital intensive business, right? You kind of create a sketch of what that business looks like. Now, once you have that list of attributes, you could be talking about a business in a number of different industries. But here's the magic, is you will definitely know when something doesn't fit your list. And it's this triage ability that is where you're going to derive value from having done this planning exercise. So whether you're looking for a business to buy or you're trying to dream up the perfect business to start, as you come up with ideas for starting a business, for example, you can apply them against this list as well and say, does this business idea meet with these criteria? I also recommend that if you think you want to start a business, you should look at business for sale websites, because it can give you information about businesses that you may never have considered before, right? So you might see a certain kind of business for sale and you might think, I'd like to learn more about that business. Maybe I can learn about it and then make a decision about whether I want to start one instead, right? So we want to build this framework in order to save time. When I meet people who say they are industry agnostic, to me, that just equals lazy. That's like you haven't taken the time to figure out what you're looking for. So you're just claiming that you're going to be willing to look at anything. And danger is that you look at one thing after another, and every time you look at something new, you have to, research an entire new industry and invest all the time and effort in learning about this new industry. And then every time you look at a business, you waste weeks of time. Or every time you dream up a new startup idea, you waste weeks of time. And literally, guys, I have known people to waste 2 years of their life doing this. So you don't want to do that. You want to make the investment upfront, figure out what the characteristics are. And so once you have figured this out, here are my characteristics, you will start to notice, hey, this business has these characteristics, this one does not. Once you've identified a couple of industries, then you can very easily look for industries that are analogous, right? So if you say, roofing business that replaces residential shingles, right? Characteristics, project-based, homeowners are the customers. We have to get a bunch of material and manpower to show up on time. We have to manage the project. Maybe it's weather dependent, right? So that list of characteristics I just spun off would also describe landscaping, fence building, pool construction, right? You get where I'm going? So these other industries are totally analogous with the roofing business. And so once you've identified a couple of these things, you can then probably sit down and dream up another whole list of industries. And now maybe you've got this sort of list of industries, maybe there's a whole pool of them, and you can start to then tackle them one at a time. So doing industry research, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to get into that more in coming videos this summer. And so stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, If you're new to the whole world of getting into business, make sure you sign up. It's getting positive reviews already from the people that I've given advanced review copies to, and I know that you're going to love it. Anyway, stay tuned. If you've got questions along these lines, put them in the comment section down below. I'm only recording 1 or 2 videos in advance because I'm looking for your feedback as I create them, and it's going to be fun. Anyway, we'll see you soon. Cheers.
So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I've prepared for you. You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor. Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.